The presentation that will be done by TRUDY will be on TRALAC initiatives to promote women and youth for a sustainable intra-African trade. I should start by indicating that TRUDY is the executive director of the Trade Law Center, and she has carried out a lot of research on international trade, competition policy, industrial development, and Africa's integration agenda. TRUDY, you have the floor for your presentation.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the introduction. And it is always a great pleasure to join you at the Cameroon Shippers Council and our colleagues. Our alumni network in Cameroon, of course, very important and growing with all the training courses that we are offering this year also. As the Chair has indicated, and some of my colleagues who have made presentations before, we are focusing very much on TRALAC's contribution to supporting women and youth to promote trade under the AFCFTA. Previous speakers have indicated, of course, that the African Continental Free Trade Area is a very ambitious initiative. We are integrating 55 eventually unequal partners, some small countries, least developed countries, many of which are also landlocked, and of course some larger economies that are more developed and diversified in terms of their economic structures. We are ambitious with the AFCFTA, and I think that's very important that we recognize that. Our agreement, as our previous colleague has indicated, is a very comprehensive one. We are focusing on trade in goods, trade in services, intellectual property rights, competition policy, investment, dispute settlement, and of course, very importantly, also on digital trade and e-commerce. And very recently, ladies and gentlemen, I have been extremely pleased to note that we will have a protocol on women, youth, and SMEs. And this is very much the topic of my contribution today. And I'm very happy to share with you some of the work that TRALAC is doing on trade and gender, and also gender in the context of investment, which is increasingly important as we look at the potential of the African Continental Free Trade Area, not only to boost intra-Africa trade, but also to leverage the dynamic benefits of a free trade area by attracting foreign direct investment, for example, to the larger integrated markets which the AFCFTA will create. This, ladies and gentlemen, is where medium-term and longer-term benefits in terms of expanding and diversifying our productive capacity, creating jobs, sustainable economic opportunities, and also addressing some of the really important challenges of inequality, exclusion, marginalization of many communities. And it is in this context that we focus on both women, gender issues, and youth. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will be launching at TRALAC a very important study at our annual conference, to which I will invite you to come. It will be on the 22nd and 23rd of July. We will be launching a study which has been done by one of our volunteers, which takes a look at all Africa's trade agreements, both amongst ourselves, but also with global trade partners, and takes a look at how trade and gender issues are included or perhaps not included. It focuses very much on the strength of the commitments. Are they best endeavor provisions so that we will attempt to address gender equality and support gender equality, or have the member states undertaken binding commitments? Are they very, very convinced, and have they made commitments to undertake important changes to support trade and gender development, and also address those inequalities which we know exist still very much across the continent? What we see, ladies and gentlemen, in the African Continental Free Trade Area is that there are, in terms of the legal instruments that we have already, we have some references to gender, trade and gender already. So in the preamble to the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, we have the following. We, the member states of the African Union, recognizing the importance of international security, democracy, human rights, gender equality, and the rule of law. This is extremely important. So it is already in the preamble, the recognition of the importance of gender equality. In Article 3, the member states who have ratified the agreement go further. The general objectives of the AFCFTA are to promote and attain sustainable and inclusive socio-economic development, gender equality, and structural transformation of the state parties. This is a very important statement, ladies and gentlemen. Keep in mind also that at the extraordinary summit, which took place in March 2018 in Kigali, Rwanda, when the AFCFTA was launched, there is explicit reference in the decision adopted by the member states on that occasion of the critical importance to include youth and women in the continental and global trading system. In the Protocol on Trade and Services, ladies and gentlemen, and I see this as a very, very important instrument, given the importance of trade and services, but also of the services sectors in all of our economies. Across the continent, ladies and gentlemen, the services sectors contribute more than 50% of Africa's GDP. All economic activity, more than half of all economic activity is accounted for by services. So Article 27 of the Protocol on Trade and Services states the following. State parties agree, where possible, to mobilize resources in collaboration with development partners and implement measures in support of the domestic efforts of state parties with a view to, inter alia, improving the export capacity of formal and informal services suppliers, with particular attention to micro, small, and medium-sized women and youth services suppliers. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a very, very clear statement of ambition to address gender and youth inequalities and inequities in the trade and services area, which is so important. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just a reminder that we have a very comprehensive agenda, and we know that trade and gender and emphasis on youth should permeate the entire collection of legal instruments. We now know that there will be a protocol on women, youth, and SMEs, and we look forward to hear about the start of those negotiations. Meanwhile, we have an opportunity to make input into the debate and the discussion about what should be in that protocol to achieve the objectives of promoting inclusiveness, equity, access to opportunities, and to promote the achievement of the potential of the AFCFTA by women and youth, as well as all other stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, at TRALAC, the Trade Law Center, we are a non-profit organization. I'm calling you today from Cape Town. We're based in South Africa, but we work across the continent. The AFCFTA has made sure that all our programs are continent-wide. African integration for us is not a choice, it is an absolute necessity for Africa's trade and sustainable development agenda. Some of the indicators that inspire us to continue with the work that we're doing and that make this an absolute imperative to focus on women and youth is the fact that more than 50% of Africa's population is female. The median age of Africa's population is 19. We have a very, very young population, ladies and gentlemen, combining youth and gender. This means that the success of the AFCFTA is inextricably linked to the access to the opportunities and the extent to which women and youth will be able to take up the opportunities for us to realize the potential of the AFCFTA. The reality is also, ladies and gentlemen, that across the continent, the predominant form of business is small and medium-sized enterprises, and many are women-led micro, small, and medium enterprises. So focus on SME development, as we'll see in the new protocol that we will be negotiating under the AFCFTA, makes sense. But what does TRALAC do, ladies and gentlemen? And I've referred to some research that we are doing in this forthcoming working paper by Lolita Lapère-Forget. And ladies and gentlemen, very interesting that we have found that gender issues have been included in many of our trade and integration agreements. And in fact, the first one that we've come across in terms of our regional integration arrangements is indeed, not by coincidence, ladies and gentlemen, the treaty establishing the Economic Community of Central African States, ECAS. So we're extremely pleased to share that with you as we are in Cameroon, virtually, so to speak, today. In 1983, this extremely important agreement became the first trade agreement between African member states and the first between developing countries to include a gender-related provision. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Article 60 provides that parties shall develop collective research by appropriate policies aimed at improving the economic, social, and cultural status of women in urban and rural areas and increasing their integration in development activities. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to give effect to provisions such as these. But what does TRALAC do to support women's economic empowerment across the continent? And ladies and gentlemen, we focus both on women traders, but we also focus on women policymakers. And our focus on women policymakers is extremely important because women are still outnumbered. They are still not sufficiently represented in our trade policy making institutions, in forums, participating where decisions are being made about policies at national level in most countries across the continent, not all of them, but in most of them, and also when it comes to negotiating trade agreements. Ladies and gentlemen, if women are not at the table where the decisions are being made, then maybe we will see that those decisions do not truly reflect the needs of women, and the same applies to youth. We have a program, ladies and gentlemen, which we launched at our annual conference in Kenya, in Nairobi in 2019. We called it Women in Trade Governance. We've subsequently renamed it She Governs Trade. And this program focuses very much on supporting women policymakers through research, training, and active policy dialogue and engagement. A very important part of the program combines our focus on women and youth. And this is the She Governs Trade Development Program. Every year, ladies and gentlemen, we invite applicants, young women, as defined in terms of age categories by the United Nations, so under 35 years, but we're flexible. We're flexible on that, to join the program, which will involve a year-long support program. There's technical training on trade matters, but also professional skills development. Ladies and gentlemen, it is sometimes very difficult for women policymakers to be agents of change within male-dominated policy institutions. So professional skills such as change management, presentation skills, research skills, writing skills are all part of the professional skills package, which will help women to leverage their input into the policy-making processes more effectively. There's also a mentor program, and I'm extremely pleased to say, ladies and gentlemen, that this year, for a large number of our participants in the development program, the mentors are alumni of TRALAC's training programs. We are creating an ecosystem where we are training women by women. So we are supporting through the training programs for our policymakers to also assist their younger colleagues who are important in this longer term perspective of developing sustainable capacity within our government departments. Our aims are very important: to increase technical skills, leadership and professional skills. We want to mainstream women in trade governance. And we want to give effect to what mainstreaming means. Ladies and gentlemen, we often hear that we should mainstream trade in policy. What does that mean? We need the detail, the specificity is extremely important. So what does that mean? And these are the issues that we address in this program. TRALAC offers a number of training programs, and we give specific opportunities to women and young participants. The International Trade Law and Policy for Africa's Development is our flagship training program. It's a certificate program, and we have just completed, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, we have just completed the intake for 2021 by completing a round of oral exams. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an intensive program supported by e-learning and virtual classrooms. And we have a number of alumni from that program in Cameroon, I'm very pleased to say. We also have an internship and volunteer program, ladies and gentlemen. The interns are recent graduates who are looking for work experience prior to entering the world of work. It is often required that you have experience. And for a recent graduate, that's extremely difficult, ladies and gentlemen. So we offer an opportunity for interns and for volunteers to work with us on our daily work program. And I'll share with you what that involves. We have a policy at TRALAC where we promote interdisciplinary work. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm an economist by training, but I have learned how important it is for me to also be able to read an international trade agreement. By the same token, it is particularly important that trade lawyers understand trade data, so that when it comes to, for example, an investigation for safeguards or anti-dumping, they should know what the data requirements are in order to prove that dumping is taking place or that there has been a surge of imports that has caused serious injury to the domestic industry, and that there is a causal link between the surge of imports and that serious injury. So we work in teams and we support our economists, support our lawyers, and vice versa. We learn a lot from each other, and this interdisciplinary approach enriches our learning, given the specific disciplines that we come from. Our interns and volunteers contribute to our research program, and last week we published a blog by one of our interns. There will be many, many more that you will be able to see on our website. This is important because our interns who may want to go into an academic career are building up a track record of research and experience. But we also support, ladies and gentlemen, women traders and women entrepreneurs. And this is extremely important to keep in mind, that access to the technical requirements to trade under trade agreements, ladies and gentlemen, is not always accessible. It is not available in a format that presents the requirements in a non-technical, accessible manner. So what we do at TRALAC is we provide guides, 2 pages, no longer than 2 pages, which describe in very practical detail what the requirements are. We'll also have links to where you find the application forms, or what forms do you have to complete in order to comply with the requirements of the rules of origin or the standards or the other requirements of an international trade agreement such as the AFCFTA. As a previous speaker has noted, of course, we are still negotiating some outstanding rules of origin, and as the results come available, ladies and gentlemen, we update and produce more guides for the private sector. But ladies and gentlemen, we can't do all of this alone. And partnerships are extremely important for TRALAC to achieve the objectives that we have set for ourselves. So we work with a number of organizations, and I will share with you just a few of those in the interest of time. TRALAC, in partnership with the International Chamber of Commerce, the United Parcel Service, UPS, an important global logistics company, and West Blue Consulting, has formed a partnership to support women traders in the AFCFTA. We offer training, trade tools, access to information, technical support, and information webinars. And ladies and gentlemen, we will be at Expo 2020 in Dubai in October this year. We hope to see you there, either in person or virtually. This is in recognition of the fact, of course, that the AFCFTA, ladies and gentlemen, although a key aim is to promote intra-Africa trade, the AFCFTA also has the potential to provide the support to our producers through the establishment of cross-border economic activities and value chains, increasing our competitiveness in terms of trade with our global partners. Trade with our global partners remains important. For last year, it was still 80% of Africa's total trade. Here are some of the recent webinars and training courses, ladies and gentlemen. On the 8th of June, I presented a webinar with an update on the AFCFTA. We have technical training on rules of origin, on classification of goods, but also, very importantly, on digital trade issues, social media marketing, leveraging e-commerce platform access, and expanding our markets in that way. All extremely important for us to develop and realize the opportunities under the AFCFTA. Again, making information accessible to our traders, to all of our stakeholders under the AFCFTA is extremely important. We have here, as we also have on the TRALAC website, a frequently asked question on the AFCFTA, which we update regularly as more countries ratify the agreement and more negotiating outcomes are achieved. This provides an update set of information on where we stand. These are some of the tools available on the eTradeHubs.com portal: trade and tariff information, duty estimator, which also includes taxes and levies at the destination country, so where we are exporting to. It's a comprehensive database which makes possible access to this information. And ladies and gentlemen, it's free of charge. AFCFTA opportunities, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to skip through this one because we have spoken about this a lot. But I do want to simply recognize and remind ourselves that, of course, our regional economic communities will continue to exist. So we should not ignore the important opportunities that may well become even more attractive as a result of the AFCFTA. For example, ladies and gentlemen, if we move to adopting digital customs and border management solutions, digital trade solutions, digital certificates of origin, and so on, our trade within existing regional economic communities will also benefit. So this is a multiplier effect, for example, of the trade facilitation agenda under the AFCFTA. Let's not lose sight of those opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, the AFCFTA, it's a free trade agreement, but it's also much more than that. And there are many complementary initiatives which are also addressing challenges that women-led and youth-led businesses face. And our colleagues have mentioned some of them, so I won't go into any detail here. There are a few that I would like to share with you. Pan-African Payment and Settlement System and access to trade finance. Ladies and gentlemen, this is particularly important. We are hoping to see some fintech developments where the information on a small-scale cross-border trader on her mobile phone will become accepted as collateral of providing evidence of the viable business that she has, and hopefully lead to access to trade finance and other finance to develop her business. Quality assurance, increasingly important, ladies and gentlemen, to protect human, plant, animal health and the environment. But quality assurance excuse me, is costly. So assisting women to get access to the laboratories, to testing, certification is an extremely important enterprise. And it also means that we're assisting women to trade anywhere in the world if they meet international standards of safety, health, and protection of the environment. We've had reference to the African Trade Observatory. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to focus a little bit here on trade facilitation. We know, ladies and gentlemen, that non-tariff barriers are far more challenging to intra-Africa traders than tariff barriers. There are ample studies that show that, and I'll share with you one that TRALAC has done. And what has happened in recent years is that regional economic communities have developed, and some member states have also developed NTB notification mechanisms. One of the first, of course, was tradebarriers.org, and this was in the Eastern Southern African region. Ladies and gentlemen, I heard last week from the expert who's been particularly important in developing this facility that to date, 99% of the complaints that have been notified on tradebarriers.org have been lodged by men. Ladies and gentlemen, where are the women? This does not mean that women traders do not face non-tariff barriers. It's something that we need to understand. Do they have access to information, or are they perhaps not getting the opportunities to trade across borders and to use mechanisms such as this? So, ladies and gentlemen, that's some research that we will certainly be looking into, but this is quite a very dramatic statistic. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that a very large number of the notifications, NTBs, are about customs and border management.
Hello,
Keep
Trudy.
in mind.
We are running out of time, please.
Sure, 1 minute. Thanks so much. At borders, women obviously face additional risks and challenges, in some cases even abuse. And therefore, the matter of a simplified trade regime under the AFCFTA is extremely important for us to develop. This, ladies and gentlemen, is some analysis we've done on non-tariff barriers. And this study indicates that a 20% reduction of time in transit on the road and at border posts will yield much greater benefits than completely eliminating tariffs on the continent. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the NTB reporting, monitoring, and eliminating mechanism of the AFCFTA. We should all register so that we are able to log any of those NTBs with a way to resolving them systemically so that we reduce those barriers and improve the business environment for women, for youth, for all traders, investors, and producers. Thank you so much.